The new iPad Pros were announced last week, and forgive my voice if I sound off. I've been sick with COVID for an entire week. It's been brutal. I'm still sick, but I did want to try to make a video. I have not missed making a video on the channel every week from basically the last 5 years. I'm trying to keep that streak going, but apologies if I sound off. Anywho, I've been an iPad Pro user for a long time. I've gone off and on again. The most viewed video on my channel is about the Surface Pro 8 and how it replaced a MacBook and an iPad Pro that I had. So I wouldn't say that I'm a diehard Apple fanboy or iPad fanboy either. My current primary computer is that NZXT pre-built desktop back there with a few modifications. The original power supply on that thing blew out and their support was horrible, so I just upgraded it myself. For a little while, this 12.9-inch M2 iPad Pro is my primary iPad and primary computing device. It's still my primary iPad. It is the 1TB 16 gig of RAM model. I bought the Magic Keyboard with it and the Apple Pencil, and I had really high hopes for this thing. I was hoping to use Final Cut as my primary video editing app, but I ran into way too many issues. I won't get into that. I did use LumaFusion for a while. LumaFusion is a very good app, especially for the price, but it has some limitations compared to desktop Final Cut or desktop Premiere or DaVinci Resolve Studio, which is what I use on my desktop now. I use Studio on the desktop with the Speed Editor. The Speed Editor works on the iPad version, but the iPad version is a separate purchase and it doesn't have the edit page and the color page, or at least it doesn't have the delivery page and the edit page, I think. It only has the cut page and something else. Anyway, I won't be the first person to say this, but the iPad as it exists right now is still just severely limited by software, and I'm not totally sure what the answer is. When I saw the announcement of these new iPad Pros with the tandem OLED screen and the super thin design and the new aluminum Magic Keyboard and the Apple Pencil Pro, that part of my brain that gets excited about new iPads was definitely excited, and I definitely was like, oh, I kind of want to try this. But I learned some lessons from this iPad and from previous iPads that are strongly suggesting to me that I should hold off. One, iPads are not designed to be upgraded every year anyway. Only tech YouTubers and like tech fanatics really would upgrade from an M2 to the M4 iPad Pro. They skipped M3. Generally, many people are able to use 2018 iPads, 2020 iPads for sure, and sometimes even older depending on what you use it for. There are certain applications and functionalities that are locked behind different generations, but for most people, the iPad they have is the iPad they need, and they may not need any iPad at all. And my big takeaway from having this for almost a year is that I really regret getting the 1TB 16 gig of RAM model. I really thought more applications would utilize 16 gigs of RAM now that the M1 and the M2 have had 16 gig of RAM options, but there's still basically nothing I'm aware of that really necessitates having the RAM. I think it just comes down to how Apple lets RAM be used by iPadOS. I'm not an expert though, so a computer science engineer or someone who has more coding experience with the iPad platform would probably better understand that. But yeah, to me, the 16 gig of RAM is the biggest ripoff, and 1TB of storage is super unnecessary. Even if you were to go all in on Final Cut editing, you can now edit off of an external drive, or at least you'll be able to do that. And frankly, I've had such bad experience with Final Cut on the iPad, I wouldn't suggest buying one for that anyway. And so yeah, I think the new design is really cool. I'm worried about the thinness of this iPad, although I'm not the first person to say that. I'll be very curious to see how it holds up in real world usage, the M4 iPad Pro. I've had no issues with my M2 iPad Pro. It's definitely thicker and heavier than this new one, and I've had it mostly in the Magic Keyboard when I transport it and bring it around. I think the screen on this M2, and it's the same screen that's on the M1 as well, the 12.9-inch, the mini LED is fantastic. I actually am more worried about burn-in on the tandem OLED model than I am excited about OLED, especially because a lot of the apps I use on iPad are more static. LumaFusion, which I still use to edit all of my reels on my Instagram, Logic Pro, even Safari. A lot of what I do on the iPad is static UI unless I'm watching a video. And I do worry long-term about burn-in, especially with that max brightness of 1000 nits. They talk about the efficiency of the tandem OLED reducing burn-in, but if you're operating at max brightness, I would imagine that increases the potential for burn-in, but I don't know. Maybe they solved that. My iPhone has never burned in, so maybe Apple OLED is built differently. And my LG OLED TV is fine too, but I don't watch static things on that. I don't have like a spreadsheet open, or I don't run desktop software besides video games on my TV. I am actually generally worried about what OLED would be like on an iPad. Even just this screen, for example, right? I mean, just looking at static images, I'd be concerned. But man, look at that thinness. The thinness is cool. If it's durable, then that's pretty amazing. I will say this iPad is heavy sometimes, so there was a lot of people saying, who asked for a lighter iPad? I would like a lighter iPad if it was durable. And so that's a big reason I was considering upgrading. But even for the YouTube channel, even if I would make my money back making videos about it, from a realistic how I would actually use technology perspective, I don't think there's a huge win for me to upgrade. And again, I don't think most people are supposed to upgrade every year. I think the biggest market for this iPad is people who bought one in 2018, maybe 2020, but really probably not. Unless you really want an M series chip so that you can use Stage Manager, then there's no real reason to upgrade from, you know, the 2020 model with the A12Z, unless you really want Stage Manager and like external monitor support specifically. But even then, I will say the external monitor support on this iPad has been not what I was hoping. It definitely fills the screen, which is nice, but, and this is gonna sound like nitpicking, it won't drive my screen at 144 Hertz or 120 Hertz. This screen is 120 Hertz. It's a ProMotion, and my desktop screen is 144 Hertz 4K gaming monitor with a USB-C cable connection, and it won't drive it at the high frame rates. A MacBook will, but this will not. And so things are kind of choppier and slower than they need to be, especially with Bluetooth accessories like the Magic Trackpad, to the point where I don't really like using it with an external monitor because of that slower refresh rate. I'm not sure why it's stuck at that rate. Even if they had to turn this screen off to get the other one to work at 4K 144, that would be my preference, or even 120. The other thing I think is a pretty big con of the new iPads is that the Apple Pencil Pro is only compatible with the new iPad Pro and the new iPad Air. They say it's because of how they reconfigured that section of the iPad, because there's now a landscape camera, which is a huge upgrade. I do actually wish this had the landscape camera. But they're saying in the process of making that work, it killed the ability to be backward and forward compatible. So this Apple Pencil 2, I think that's what this is called, the Apple Pencil 2, Apple Pencil 2nd generation, it's not compatible with the new Pros or the new iPad Air M4. And then the new Apple Pencil Pro is not compatible with this iPad Pro, even though it's compatible with the iPad Air with the M2. That sounds nitpicky, but it's just frustrating. A lot of people upgraded to this one specifically for the Apple Pencil upgrade. Like artists wanted the hover feature, and those same artists would have to upgrade to a whole new iPad to get the Apple Pencil Pro features, which I think is super whack. Frankly, I'm not a good enough artist to justify upgrading an iPad just for those additional features anyway. But I don't know, there's something about this upgrade cycle that just feels especially craven almost. Like, I'm not trying to be negative, it just feels especially like not reading the room. Obviously there was that commercial where they crushed all the art supplies and like instruments and things like that made a bunch of people mad. There's a ton of reference to AI stuff, which I loathe. I really don't like generative AI, especially in art, especially in music. I was gonna make a video about the new Logic, but the new Logic is basically just like the current Logic plus a bunch of AI features I really don't like. Like an AI keyboardist. Like, I'm a keyboardist. I don't need an AI keyboardist. And there's so many things I'm curious about, like copyrighted music. Is someone just gonna run every possible scenario of generative like AI music through like ASCAP or BMI and try to just copyright and patent troll every single possible song ever that could be created? Like 1,000 monkeys in the room with typewriters or whatever. These are the questions it feels like big technology companies just don't care about. And Apple's supposed to be the company that cares about artists, so I am very curious how hardcore they're gonna lean into generative AI, because I think they may be massively misreading their audience if they think that their product that is primarily successful with 2D artists and designers is going to be like an AI-centric device. I think they're gonna piss a lot of people off. And even the music aspects that they're finally leaning into, you know, instead of pushing for maybe third-party VST compatibility with, you know, Mac VSTs or AUV3s, instead of making Logic even more of a pro app, they're just gonna add some additional AI stuff to it. And it's just like, come on, guys. I think there's a new kind of a distortion plugin though that sounds like it could be cool, so I'm excited to check that out. Distortion plugins are like the big thing this year. Distortion and stem separation, right? Which I also don't super care about. I know my audience probably likes stem separation more than I do. But yeah, it feels like everybody has to do stem separation now because of MPC stems, and I think other apps do it. So it's cool that Logic's adding that for people who want it. It's really funny, the Apple ad version of this was like, you can take your songs and separate the stems out, which is definitely not what most people are using a feature like that for. But very funny, very copyright safe, Apple. Anyway, yeah, I think the big differences between this one and the new one, and they are pretty substantial because this is a true generational leap, the same way the 2017 to 2018 iPad Pro was a leap. This one is much thinner, lighter, tandem OLED, one camera, which I think is fine. I saw a few people on Reddit be really sad there's only one camera. They missed the wide angle. The Apple Pencil Pro, which even though I'm annoyed about it only being supported on the new iPads, it is a cool upgrade. It's got a little haptic engine and it has a little context sensitive menu function if you squeeze it. Tandem OLED could be cool, could be bad. There's a bit of a weird uniform whiteness issue on mine, and every mini LED iPad I've tested has this problem where if you're on a white page, parts of it, like chunks, even chunks, will be yellower if you're using True Tone. I'm curious if they solve that with white backgrounds on the OLED. And I don't see that problem on the mini LEDs on the laptops. So maybe they've already solved that. Also, I'm just super sensitive to it because I never noticed anyone else talk about this, but I can see it repeated. It's called the dirty screen effect. So I'm curious if they fixed the dirty screen effect. Maybe not, because even my OLED TV has a bit of a dirty screen door effect on specific gray backgrounds, so who knows. Price differential is frustrating now because the 11-inch and the 12.9-inch both have the nice screen, which is a huge upgrade. It's great for the people who like the 11-inch, but it's still a $300 price difference between 11 and 13, which is crazy to me. At that point, I think it should be maybe 150, 200. 300 is excessive. It feels like they're really gouging the people who go for the high end, which is not new, but I'm hopeful maybe in a generation or two, they may chill out a bit. And hopefully with more and more iPads coming out that have 8 gigs and 16 gigs of RAM, we'll start to see more and more software that leverages it. In the announcement event for this, they showed ZBrush, which is not on the App Store yet. So I think they phantom dropped ZBrush as an announcement. That would be really cool. I want to see more and more pro apps like that come out. The Magic Keyboard that they upgraded for this one has a function row of keys, including volume and brightness, and I really wish that was on mine. It's so dumb that's a feature that isn't just default on all of the Magic Keyboards, but I'm glad the new one has it. So I would say, you know, if you've got like a 4 or 5-year-old iPad, it's maybe worth upgrading. But for me, the only reason I would upgrade is to try out some of those new features and because I have a YouTube channel. If I was just a regular consumer, I would not recommend upgrading, even from the M1. I will say, even before I had a YouTube channel, I'm the kind of person who would buy tech and try it out. So if I do that, like, I still don't think everyone should do that. And I would also say the 13-inch iPad Air with the M2 is probably the best value iPad. If you are interested in an iPad, I think the 13-inch M2 iPad Air is probably gonna be the one. But if you watch a lot of content, I would almost recommend getting a M1 12.9-inch or an M2 if you can get a good deal on it, because the mini LED screen is so nice for watching video. Anything that's black on the screen is actually black, and that makes a huge difference in my opinion for watching things versus the iPad Air and its kind of gray backlit screen. But some people are not sensitive to that and don't care at all. So maybe look at both screens, try some videos out and see if you even notice or care. Same with the ProMotion. I really, really like the high refresh rate of ProMotion on my phone and on my iPad. Some people don't mind not having that at all. I would say take a look at these if you're interested, but I don't see a reason to upgrade. And I just really hope that having more and more iPads out there that have higher RAM and processing power leads to more professional apps coming over. Native Instruments sent me a code for Trash. So they brought Trash over to iPad and I still need to play with that some more, but it is promising to see more plugins come out. I do think it's gonna take more than small individual plugins to really move the needle. I'd be excited to see the entire Arturia V collection and like the entire Play series from Native Instruments, big drops on the iPad, maybe for like a singular price that you pay so that you have the iPad version and the desktop version. Although I could see them also doing like they did with Trash, Native Instruments did, where you just get the iPad version for a cheaper price. That's probably good for people who just want to be on iPad. But for example, like I bought FabFilter just on iPad, and I kind of wish I'd had a version of it that was on my desktop too. Because realistically, I personally still do most of my mixing mastering on my desktop. So the idea of universal apps that are on both, especially that are also compatible with PC, since I do have a PC desktop, that's ideal to me. But anyway, I could talk about this forever. I hope you have an awesome week ahead. Thank you so much to everyone who's checked out my music. My album, There's Something Better, is streaming on all the services and on Bandcamp. And thank you so much to everyone who's liked and subscribed. The channel is getting really close to 12,000 subscribers, which is insanity. So really thank you from the bottom of my heart. And thanks for putting up with my rambly, kind of sick situation this week. I didn't even know if I was gonna make a video, but hopefully this was entertaining to watch. All right, I'll catch you soon. Have a great week ahead. Peace.